Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back from lunch. At this time, the state will begin the presentation of its evidence. Counsel.
Thank you, Judge. State's going to call Justin Badgett.
Okay. Mr. Baumel, before you leave, just for purposes of the record, we have had a separation of witnesses, correct? There's an agreement among counsel. Just want to make sure no one in the courtroom is a witness. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? You take the witness stand right there. You may adjust the mic if you need to.
All right, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Would you please tell the jury your full name and spell your last name?
My name's Justin Badgett. Spell last name is B-A-D-G-E-T-T.
And how old are you, Justin?
24.
And what part of town do you live in?
Akron, Goodyear Heights area.
I'm sorry?
Akron, Goodyear Heights area.
And have you lived your whole life in the Akron area?
Yes.
Go to school in Akron?
Yes.
What high school did you attend?
Elliott.
And what type of work do you do?
Construction, electrical.
And do you belong to a specific union in regards to your trade?
No, not at the moment.
How long have you been involved in construction and electrical work?
4, 5 years.
Justin, did you know an individual by the name of Keith Johnson?
Yes.
And first of all, how did you know Keith?
He was a friend from, he was a friend for about 2-3 years.
For 2 or 3 years?
Yeah.
Mr. Badgett, if you could just get a little bit closer to your mic.
All right.
And in regards to becoming friends, how did the two of you get to know each other or have reason to interact with each other?
It was buy pot off of him.
It was what?
To buy pot.
Buying pot, is that correct?
Correct.
Taking you back to March of 2017, did you get involved with Keith in regards to helping him sell a dirt bike?
Yes.
And tell us about that.
I was the one, I posted, that he asked me if I could post the dirt bike to sell it, and said yeah, and so I posted it to a couple sites, and is that?
Now, had you done something like that before for Keith in regards to trying to sell dirt bike or any
Yes.
similar type of thing?
Yes.
How many times had you done that before?
Twice.
And did Keith need your help, or why did he come to you?
Just because I was involved with all like those selling sites on Facebook and stuff like that, and he wasn't.
Now, the selling sites on Facebook, tell us about those sites.
It's like where you can, like Ohio Buy, Sell, and Trade. It's just where you just post something for sale, and like everybody that's part of that group can see it.
And in your discussions with Keith, if you're successful in selling that dirt bike, were you going to receive anything in regards for your troubles?
Yeah, like usually like $100 for just helping them out selling the bike.
So specifically the dirt bike that we're talking about in March of 2017, did you know how long Keith had that bike?
I do not know how long.
Were you with him when he obtained that bike?
No.
Did you have an opportunity to see the bike prior to posting it?
I've seen it, yeah, before posting it.
Justin, I'm going to show you now what's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 3B and 3C, and have you look at those two photographs. And do you recognize those photographs?
Yes.
And what do you recognize those to be?
The dirt bike.
Okay. And so those are true and accurate pictures of the dirt bike that we're talking about from March of 2017.
Yes.
For the benefit of the jury, then I'm going to put them on the docket. First of all, putting on the docket cam State's Exhibit 3B. Can you tell us, for the record, what we're looking at here?
I don't know what year, but it is a YZ80 Yamaha dirt bike.
A Yamaha YZ80.
Yeah.
Correct.
Correct.
And in regards to 80, is that just a model number, or is there any significance to the number 80?
The 80 is the like the cubic size of the engine. It's 80 cc.
And what are the range of sizes of engines that you can get in dirt bikes, if you know?
From 50 to 500.
And is 50 the least powerful and 500 the most powerful?
Yes.
And you said this was a YZ80, is that
Yeah,
correct?
Correct.
Showing you, which been marked as 3C, this is another picture of the bike, is that correct?
Correct.
Now, to give us a little bit of an education as far as the operation of the bike, can you kind of tell us how you operate a dirt bike, how you start it, you know, how you speed up in it, how you stop it, how you turn it off and on?
Well, you started by, it has a kickstart where, not sure which side, I believe it's on the other side, where you just kickstart it open and it starts up. How you get it going is you hold the clutch in, you click it into gear, which the shifter I believe is on that side of the bike.
And I'm going to have you speak up, slow down, and make sure you talk in that microphone.
Okay. But which part did you want me to repeat?
Why don't you tell us about, I think you were talking about the clutch.
Okay.
And I don't know if 3B will help you.
Yeah, right where the Akron police car's taillight is, that's where the clutch is, on that side of the handlebars.
And that would be the left handlebar?
the left side,
if
yeah.
You're sitting on the bike?
You're sitting on the bike at your left hand.
And Mr. Badgett, you can actually touch right on
Here,
there.
if you wanted to circle what you're talking about.
On here?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Oh, I don't know what I did.
That's all right, I had the same problem. On the left side is the clutch. Can you circle that?
Right in here.
And what does the clutch do?
It's like a neutral for a bike. Like it just takes it out of gear so it doesn't like it's like pretty much neutral, like to me. I don't know how else to explain that.
So neutral meaning that the bike would move.
Yeah, it just will rock back and forth. Yeah.
All right. What about on the right side, the right handlebar?
The right handlebar, that's the front brake.
And and we've heard the term throttle before?
Yeah, on the right hand side right here, that's the throttle, and then right in front of that would be the front brake.
And what does the throttle do?
Accelerates the bike.
As far as turning the bike on and off, you indicated how you kick start it, but what if you want to turn the bike off? How do you do that?
On the right hand over there's a kill switch that should.
Let me erase some of this.
Yeah.
You want to turn it off again?
Right in there, like there's right where your thumb would be, like you're holding onto the throttle. There's a red kill switch that will say on and off.
And that would once again be on the right side of the handlebar, correct?
Correct.
As far as this dirt bike is concerned, when you said that you put it up for sale, did you post pictures of the dirt bike?
Yes, I posted one picture of it.
And do you recall, as far as the asking price, do you recall how much you asked, who decided how much you were going to ask for the bike?
I think it was $700 or $800, I believe.
And whose decision was that?
Keith.
And just based upon your knowledge of dirt bikes, let's strike that. How knowledgeable are you of dirt bikes as far as their value and things of that nature?
The smaller bikes, like the 80, I'm not really knowledgeable about, but I'm kind of familiar with them. Not the smaller bikes, like 150 and like 250 and up. I know about pretty good, but not a YZ8 is not really too familiar with.
Do you know if there's like blue book value for dirt bikes?
For that dirt bike or?
Dirt bikes in general.
Yeah.
And for that bike, did you have any idea what a blue book value would have been?
No, not a single one.
Did you have any idea or any information that it was a stolen dirt bike when you were putting it for sale?
Absolutely not.
So you put it kind of on this website, correct?
Correct.
And you had utilized that website on previous occasions, correct?
Yes.
Take us from there then as to what occurred.
Once I posted the bike, somebody messaged me named Ambrose and was interested in the bike, and said he can give the money and he'll come up and get the bike. And so then I told Keith and let him know, and it was basically, he's like, well, hurry up, like, sorry, I'm fumbling my words. Make sure it's before dark. And Ambrose said he was on his way. Then after that, me and
Let me
him...
stop you there in regards to that little interchange. When Ambrose contacts you, you say he instant messages you, so he's typing to you through the internet, correct?
Correct.
Is anyone else able to see that conversation, or is it just a message?
It's just a
between
private
you?
message.
Does he indicate whether he's willing to pay for the bike?
Yeah, he was willing to pay for the bike and $100 extra to hold it.
And we're going to be talking about events of March 20th. Does this all occur on the same day? Is this March 20th when this
Yes.
I guess the internet conversation's occurring?
Yes.
You indicated that somebody said you want to get it done before dark. Now, who indicated that?
Keith, I believe. Just because I don't know about anybody, but nobody really wants to like sell anything really at night. Like, just common sense, I feel like.
Do you remember whenabouts these initial conversations were occurring as far as what part of the day?
It was daylight. I'd say around like maybe 4:30.
And did you express to Ambrose what Keith had told you about wanting to sell it before nighttime, or is that just something you knew?
I believe I mentioned, like, can you be here by dark or 8:30, 9 o'clock or whatever? And he said, yeah, he's on his way right now.
And when you say to be there, what are you referring to?
There is in my house where we first initially met up, me and Ambrose,
And where is your house located?
on Leonora Avenue. And
Leonora Avenue?
Leonora.
As far as the posting, would your name have been associated with the posting?
Yeah.
And would there have been photographs of you, or could someone go onto that website and see a picture of you as far as being the person who's selling the bike?
They wouldn't see like me with the dirt bike. They would just see that in that group that Justin Badgett posted this for sale, and they would see that that was the dirt bike.
And besides having your name Justin Badgett, though, did you have a picture up showing what you look like?
Yeah, profile pictures. Yeah.
So this is kind of your regular Facebook part where you have your name, has a picture of yourself, and all the rest.
Yes.
So you provided your name, your true name, you provided what you look like, and you provided your home address. Is that correct?
Correct.
And how long had you lived at Leonora?
3 years, 4 years.
And so was the dirt bike at Leonora at that time?
No, it was not.
And why was the decision made to meet him and have the sale occur at Leonora, if you recall?
On that day, it was pretty cold outside, and the bike is a 2-stroke, and it takes a little bit for a 2-stroke to start up in the cold weather. So he was having a little bit of a trouble starting the bike, and he just told us to meet him on Danmead. That's where Keith told us to meet us at because he was having trouble starting the bike.
So the bike wasn't kept at your house, but that's where the initial meeting place was to occur.
Yeah.
And I guess my first question was, why was it going to be at your house?
I have no really idea. It would probably because I was going to post it and I would be talking, and I really didn't know any addresses for Keith anyway. So it was my initial to say, like, you can meet me at my house.
And did you specify a specific time to come to your house?
Before dark. I don't really specify any time, just wanted to make sure it was before dark.
And your house is what, 1325 Leonora?
Yeah.
And where is that in relationship to Danmead? How far away?
4 or 5 blocks away.
So at least the initial agreement is to come to Leonora, and you believe the person who's coming what is his name?
On Facebook, his name was Ambrose something.
And did you have conversations with anyone else besides the person saying they were Ambrose?
No.
And did you have any conversations by phone, text messages, or was it all through instant messaging on the internet?
It was all through instant messaging and texting.
Tell us what happened next then.
When we meet at my house?
Right, the plan right now is to meet at
Yeah.
Leonora, correct?
Plan is to meet at my house. Keith calls me, says he can't get the bike started because it's cold. So we drive over to Danmead. He tells us tells me how to get there, and tells me to go all the way down another road, take a right, go all the way down the stop sign, take a left, and it's the second street on the right. And
Let me take you back, though. When you're on Leonore, you talked with Keith, but did this person Ambrose show up at Leonore?
yeah,
And did he show up by himself or with other people?
he showed up by himself.
And do you recall what he was driving?
A black F-250 truck.
A black truck?
Yeah.
And as far as, at that point, did you recognize that individual?
No.
And did he indicate that at that point you still believe him to be Ambrose, correct?
Yes.
But the decision is made because the bike isn't starting because of the weather to go over to Danmead.
Yes. Yeah.
And tell us what happened then.
So we go over to Danmead. Ambrose follows me in his truck, and I'm driving my car. We get over to Danmead. Ambrose parks immediately behind me. We get out. The dirt bikes. Keith has the dirt bike out like on the sidewalk driveway area of the house. And Ambrose just like kind of like glances and like looks at the bike. And they started like Keith got the bike initially started and they started like revving it up. And, Ambrose was like looking over at the bike, acting like he was interested and stuff like that, and buying it. Like still not aware of like what all that he was there for the bike with the title.
Okay. So Keith, did he show him that the bike worked? Did he drive the bike at all?
Yes.
And where did he drive the bike?
Just up and down the road.
Let's show you State's Exhibit number 1. Showing you State's Exhibit number 1, again, a photograph. Do you recognize State Exhibit number 1?
Yes.
And what do you recognize that to be?
Just where it all happened.
Okay. This is kind of an overhead view of Danmead and Eastwood. Would that be accurate?
Yes.
We talked a little bit about what happened. We have a reference to this map for the benefit of the jury. First of all, putting State's Exhibit number 1. Had you ever been to Danmead or to this house prior to that date?
No, that was the first time.
And when you pull up then, are you in the lead in front of this Ambrose in his black truck?
Yes.
And where specifically did you pull up?
I pulled, is 797 the house, right? I pulled up, what, right there? We're pretty much in front of the house.
With the driveway for 797, it appears to be looking at the house on the left-hand side.
On the left, yes.
And did you park up close to the driveway?
A little bit closer to the edge of the driveway, yeah.
I put that there, is that close to where you park?
Yeah, a little bit more back, but yeah.
A little bit back?
Yeah,
Make your car smaller. And you indicate this was a Honda Civic, is that correct?
correct.
And where then did this Ambrose park?
Directly behind me.
Behind you there?
Yeah.
When you arrived, did you notice Keith at that time?
Well, yeah, that's how I knew I was at the right house. That's because he was sitting on the dirt bike in the driveway sidewalk.
In the driveway to the left-hand side? Yeah. And was Keith alone, or was there anybody with Keith at that time?
Keith was alone at that point in time when I first seen him, but towards the end, his cousin Brandon was with him.
His cousin Brandon? And do you know Brandon's last name?
Hold on, Ward?
Brandon Ward?
Yeah.
And did you know Brandon Ward prior to this day?
Yes.
So correct me if I'm wrong, you've testified that Keith drove kind of up and down the street to show that it's working, and then in that driveway is where he and Curtis start discussing the bike, correct?
Yeah, Kurt Ambrose, yeah.
Or, excuse me,
Yeah,
you knew him as Ambrose.
I know him as Ambrose.
Okay. The person you knew as Ambrose at that point are discussing the bike. Where are you when they're discussing the bike?
Standing on the sidewalk, like parallel to my car.
Tell us what happened then.
Once he got after he's riding back and forth showing that it works, they start talking about the bike, and that's when I noticed another truck pulled up behind Ambrose's truck, and at that point in time, that's when I heard Curtis say, "This is my bike, I have the title for it." And once I heard that, a lady came out of the truck that just pulled up behind Ambrose's truck, Curtis's truck, and she was on the phone. And
So let me stop you there.
Okay.
A red truck pulled up, and did it park?
yes,
Stationary? Do you know, was it blocking the driveway, or was it on the other side of the driveway? If you recall.
I don't think it was blocking the driveway, but I remember it being like it wasn't like a distance away from our vehicles.
Okay.
So yeah,
Somewhere in that
Yeah.
area. Okay, you don't remember exactly where, is that fair to say?
yeah,
And the female gets out.
yes.
And what does that female do?
She was on the phone, and she was walking like towards the dirt bike, but ended up in the driveway, or ended up in the yard of 797.
Now, this female, did you recognize her?
No.
And you indicated it was around the same time that you heard Ambrose indicate that this is his bike.
Yes.
And did you see any actions that he took which would be consistent with him checking out the bike to see if it was his?
He just matched the VIN number with the title and the bike. That's all he did. It was underneath the bike, so he like bent down and looked underneath it. That was it.
As far as lighting at this point, do you recall what the lighting was like?
It was getting dark. The street lights were on.
And do you recall if there was a street light right there or not?
I don't recall if there was.
As far as Ambrose being able to check out the VIN number, did he need any lighting, a flashlight, anything?
He used his phone to light, I'm pretty sure.
So he indicates it's his bike. The female is in the yard. What happens next?
And that's when they started arguing about whose bike it is, and he's going to get it back. And if he just gives him the bike back, then he won't call the police. And then Keith's like, "What do you mean you're already calling the police? Like, she's talking on the police right now." And so they just started arguing back and forth like that, and arguing over the bike. Keith was like, "Kid, you give me like $100 for it. I paid money for this. I have no idea it was stolen." And the guy was like, "No, absolutely not. Just give me my stuff." And yeah, it was just that's what they were doing, just arguing back and forth.
When you say arguing, how would you describe, I guess, the tone of their voices? Were they yelling at each other?
No, they weren't yelling at each other. Like they both had like firm tones, but like they weren't like screaming at each other or like yelling. No.
And was anyone else standing directly around them at that time?
No.
Do you remember where Mr. Ward was at that point?
I think he was like, there was a
I don't
car.
want you guessing, if you know.
Yeah, there was a car in a driveway, and I'm pretty sure he was like leaned up towards the back of the car in the driveway. But the car was like right in there, in the driveway, not in the yard.
Okay. But you indicated they're arguing, stern voices, but not yelling. Did you hear any threats going back and forth?
I didn't hear any threats, no.
And did you see any physical confrontation between the two of them at that time?
The only physical confrontation I seen was when Curtis jumped to grab the clutch of the bike, and that was the only physical area I seen.
Now, prior to that, were there any indications by either Ambrose or the lady that they knew you?
Yeah. The lady, while they were arguing and Ambrose was grabbing the dirt bike, the lady looked at me while she was on the phone, and she goes, "And you know me, and we know you, mother effer." And I had no idea, I didn't know him. And I said, "What are you talking about?" And she goes, "Your ex-girlfriend that you were with her nephew was best friends with the son who that dirt bike was originally.
So this lady says, "We know you, motherfucker."
Yeah.
And she explains how, and was she explaining the right people as far as you knew?
Yes, as far as I knew, yes.
And did you find out after the fact that you did, in fact, there was a connection between you and the Gills?
Yes.
Now, if you recall, when they're talking about the bike, was the bike running or was it off?
It was running.
And tell us what happened specifically in regards to Ambrose grabbing the bike.
He just lunged and jumped and grabbed the clutch of the bike, so Keith couldn't take off and leave. So the whole time that he was just squeezing onto the clutch, and the bike was just revving real high, like it was redlining.
It was redlining?
Redlining, like it was hitting the rev limiter.
You're going to have to explain that for people that aren't familiar with
like, it's where the max RPMs of a dirt bike will go, and it'll like stop. Like in a car, like you put your car in neutral, and you like slam on the gas, and the RPMs go all the way up, and when it redlines, it'll like stop at a certain RPM.
And so that's pretty loud, is that fair to say?
Yes.
What happened then?
After that whole, they told me that they knew me, and they were arguing and fighting over the dirt bike. I went to go get in my car, and I had my door open, but they're in front of my car. Again, still he's holding on to the clutch, and Keith's trying to go, and you can hear the bike like revving up and stuff.
And why are you getting into your car?
So I wanted to leave. Like I didn't want to be a part of that. I didn't.
Okay. And once again, you need to speak up. Okay.
I didn't want to be a part of that. I just wanted to leave.
Okay. So you go to get in your car, and outside of the revving of the dirt bike, you hear any other noise at that time?
Yes. The revving of the dirt bike, I heard a pop. And at the time, I thought it was the rev limiter on the bike, like it backfired. And I was thinking to myself, like, they're going to blow this bike up. And that's when I like kind of like looked over Keith's shoulder area, and in the distance, I see a man shoot a gun in the air, and he had the gun in the air.
So I want to go back. You said you thought initially it was a rev limiter. And what is a rev limiter?
It limits the RPMs that you can go to on like rev.
And if you go beyond it, it makes a noise like a pop?
Yeah, it'll make like a popping sounds.
Okay. But upon looking at this individual, did you believe that noise was caused by something else?
At first, no. I thought it was initially from the dirt bike until I seen the guy in the background was holding the gun in the air, and that's when I realized that it was a gunshot. And
at that point, when this individual firing a gun into the air, what was going on with Keith and Ambrose at that point?
They were still fighting over the bike. I still hand on the clutch, and Curtis was on the side area of the bike, facing my car, and he just still had his hand on the clutch.
As far as this individual, whereabouts was he located, if you can recall, on that diagram? And you can use the house numbers as well as a reference point.
I'd say right in front of 804, I believe, yeah, right there in the middle of the road.
In the middle of the road, in front of 804?
Yeah, maybe a little bit back.
Now, could you describe this individual?
At the time, I just seen white hair, and that was it.
Up until this point, had you noticed that individual at all on Danmead?
No.
Had that individual come over, said anything to anyone, got involved at all up until that point?
No.
So you see him shoot it into the air. What happens next?
I seen him shoot in the air, and then after that, I'm assuming that Ambrose and or Curtis and Keith didn't know that there was a warning shot, and because they were still arguing over the bike and it didn't grab their attentions. And once they got out from in front of my car, I got in my car and drove towards the dead end area.
Okay. So when you get into your green Civic, you drive away. We see on the map Eastwood. You drive in the opposite direction, is
Yeah.
that correct?
Yep.
And what happens then?
I ran into a dead end.
Let me start, as you're driving away, do you see it all as to what happens behind you, or do you hear anything at that point?
Yeah, as I'm driving away, just as I'm passing the guy in the middle of the road, I heard I heard two more pops, and I seen him like when I looked in my rearview mirror when I was a couple more feet away from him. I seen in my like side mirror him standing in the middle of the road and a stance, I guess, I believe. Yeah.
And then what happens next?
I go down to the dead end and realize I was at a dead end because that was the only time I've ever been to that road. I turn around, I turn around, I park for a couple seconds because I was panicking. I didn't know what to do. Never been in a situation like that, and eventually make my way to go back towards Eastwood. And as I'm coming back to go towards Eastwood after it, I see the people that came up there for the dirt bike standing like around in like a little huddled area, I guess, with them. And Curtis at the time, I believe, ran like kind of like in the road area and was like telling me like stop. And that's when I seen the dirt bike in the middle of the road, like not really in the middle of the road, but like more towards the middle of the road, closer to the trucks.
Which truck?
The red one, the red one right here.
Was it the truck near 797 or?
The truck behind Curtis's truck, so the last truck closest to Eastwood.
Okay. What do you do then?
I swerved around the dirt bike and left. Went out to Eastwood and left.
Did you see Keith as you drove away?
I see when I looked in the rearview mirror again, or side mirror, and I seen blue and orange. But at the time, that didn't like ring any bells to me. I just seen the bike and blue and orange. I just figured the bike was on the ground because he might have heard the gunshot or something and took off, like dropped the bike and took off or something.
Sir, you need to slow down.
Sorry.
Answer the question again, take your time.
I look back in my side mirror as I was leaving, and I see the dirt bike again, and then I see blue and orange, a color, and that's all I can remember seeing was the dirt bike and then blue and orange. And I just figured when I seen the bike again, I figured Keith dropped the bike and ran because he heard the gunshots. Then I later learned out that he was actually shot and killed.
When we talk about the red truck where you have it, is that the last place you remembered it?
Yes.
You never noticed it moving to a different location while you were there?
No.
Yeah, 1 minute, Your Honor. No further questions.
Okay.
Mr. Badgett,
Yes.
if I ask you a question and you don't understand it, you are free to ask me to repeat the question. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Okay. With respect to your friendship with Keith Johnson, you said that it was about 3 years old?
Yeah.
All right. And you got to meet him because you bought your marijuana from him. Is that correct?
Correct.
How many times did you buy marijuana from him? A lot.
No, not really, no. No. 3, 4, 5 times maybe.
Okay. And getting to the day that you arrive on March 20th, your home is on Leonora?
Yes.
All right. You live there with your family?
Yes, my mom.
Okay. And who sets up the meet at Leonora?
Me.
All right. You suggest that you suggested Keith Johnson.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I suggested we meet at my house, yeah.
All right. And when Mr. Curtis Gill shows up, AKA Ambrose, what kind of conversation do you and he have?
It was a friendly conversation. We were just talking about dirt bikes. I initiated to him that I didn't know really anything about smaller bikes such as the YZ80. And yeah, we were just making small talk about dirt bikes, stuff like that.
Would you call it a friendly conversation?
Yeah.
Okay. Then what happens next?
That's when originally the dirt bike was Keith was going to ride the dirt bike over to my house. And that's when Keith called me and said it's not starting, and because it's cold, and to have me and the guy drive over to Danmead.
So it's Keith's idea to come over to Danmead's, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, who was it that asked you to post the picture of this bike on the internet?
Nobody really asked me. Like I just did it to post it. Like he asked me to sell it, but he never like specifically said post this picture.
Keith comes to you and says, "Hey, I want to sell this bike."
Yes.
How about putting it up on the social media, see if you can move it, correct?
Correct.
You're going to get $100 if you're able to sell it.
Correct.
Does Keith tell you where the bike came from?
No.
Did he ever tell you that he put it together in North Carolina?
I do remember him saying that somebody put it together, built it. Yeah.
And that he somehow got it in North Carolina?
I don't
Okay.
I don't know that.
But he said that the bike came from someone hand-built it, if I can use that phrase,
Yeah.
in North Carolina. Is that correct?
Well, again, I don't know if it was in North Carolina, but I do remember initially something about it was all put together.
Right. Later on, in fact, didn't Keith tell you that he got the bike from a neighbor?
I don't. If maybe that's how I connected it. Maybe the neighbor put it together. I don't
Okay.
recall that.
You lead Mr. Gill in his pickup truck over to
Danby.
Davie, correct?
Correct.
All right. Mr. Gill's by himself, correct?
Correct.
Right? Doesn't mention that he's got a crew of people following him or coming with him?
No.
All right. Does Mr. Gill have a weapon? Any kind of gun?
Not visibly, no.
All right. And it's a friendly trip, isn't it?
Yeah, I was in my car and he was in his truck, but yeah.
Okay. When you arrive, did Mr. Johnson pull up about the same time?
Yes. Yeah.
So, how does Mr. Johnson know that the bike won't start if he's not even there?
He left and then came back, assuming. I don't know. From the you can hear the bike, like me and Ambrose, Curtis, we did hear the bike like kick over. Like you can hear it a little bit where we were at my house. So that's how I knew that he actually was trying to start it.
This is, did you come to find out later that this house is actually Mr. Johnson's uncle?
Yeah, later. Yeah, I found that out.
All right. And when you first arrive, they have trouble starting the bike, is that correct?
Yes.
You have to give us a verbal answer for the
Yeah,
book.
sorry, yes.
All right. The bike is running, and Mr. Gill is looking over the bike.
Yes.
The initial conversation, is it friendly with Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Okay. No accusations or anything going on?
No.
Does Mr. Gill seem to know what he's doing with that bike?
For the most part, yes.
He's looking for a serial number, he whips out his smartphone and uses it, right?
Yes.
It's a dark night, isn't it, at this point in time?
At that point, yes.
Okay. So I'm guessing you're not looking at your watch But is it fair to say it's somewhere between 8:45 and 9 o'clock? If you don't know, you
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay,
Yeah.
but it's dark.
It just got dark.
All right. Would you agree with me that Danny's a fairly quiet street, particularly at that time of night?
Yeah, that I never even knew that street existed.
When that bike starts up, it's loud, is it not?
Yeah,
Drowns out a lot of noise in the area,
correct.
and they're still having a friendly conversation while he's looking for the serial number?
He really wasn't talking to him at that point as he was looking for the VIN number now.
I'm sorry, sir, I didn't know.
Curtis wasn't really like engaging in any type of conversation while he was
He
looking.
was busy looking for something.
Yes,
At a point in time, the tone changes, doesn't it?
yes,
And would that point in time be the moment that Mr. Gill says, "This is my bike, I have the bike"? Correct?
correct.
Okay. Then things get, I'll use the word, tense.
Yes.
Does Mr. Gill produce a title?
Wait, did he have one for that bike?
Did he show you a title?
No.
Okay. At any time, did you look at the title?
Yes, Curtis.
So he did have a title.
Who?
Mr. Gill.
Yeah, he did have a title. Yeah.
At any time, did Mr. Johnson ever show you a title to this bike?
No.
Did he ever tell you he had a title to the bike?
I never specified that he had one, but no.
Did you look at the title and look at the serial number on the title?
From Curtis, yes. Yes.
Did you compare that with the serial number on the bike?
Yes,
Right? And what did you find?
they matched.
They matched, correct?
Correct.
At any point in time, did you say to Mr. Johnson, it's a match, it's his bike?
Yes.
So you told Mr. Johnson at that point in time, correct?
Yes.
So Mr. Johnson at that point in time knew for sure that that bike belonged, or at least to the title owner, was Mr. Gill.
Yes.
Did that title have Mr. Gill's name on it?
I didn't check that,
All
no.
right, well, we'll get to it later. Fair enough. Now, at this point in time, the conversation turns harsh, hard, whatever you want to call it. Is that correct?
Yes.
Mr. Gill tells Mr. Johnson, I want my bike.
Back, yes.
And Mr. Johnson says, give me some money for it.
Yeah.
And doesn't Mr. Gill say, why should I give you money for my bike?
Yes.
Mr. Gill says, you're trying to extort me?
No, I don't recall that.
Okay. All right. Did Mr. Gill at any time strike Mr. Johnson, punch him or something like that?
Not that I've seen, no.
All right. Is it at this point that Mr. Gill is simply intent on getting his bike?
Yes.
He doesn't have a weapon.
No, not
The only
that.
thing he has in his hand is a title, correct?
Yes.
We talk about an engine redlining. We talk about the throttle, and we talk about the clutch, correct?
Correct.
When you press the clutch in, that disengages the driveline, doesn't it?
Yes.
Okay? So the bike is basically neutral, correct?
Correct.
Right? The throttle is what causes the bike to accelerate, correct?
Correct.
At a point in time, Mr. Gill only has his hand, or trying to get his hand, on
The
clutch. Okay?
Correct.
He doesn't want that bike to go anywhere, correct?
No.
That's why he has it on the clutch.
Yes.
Can't engage the gear, right?
Correct.
At a point in time, does Mr. Gill reach around and try to find something on the engine?
Yes, I think he was trying to find a gas shut-off
Okay.
switch.
Let me ask you something else. You know a little bit about bikes, right?
Right.
Okay. If a person is trying to take the spark plug out, will that stop the bike?
Yeah,
Right. Cuts off the ignition to the cylinder, doesn't it?
correct.
No cylinder push,
No, nothing.
no acceleration, right?
Right.
But you saw Mr. Gill reaching around either for a gas shut-off or maybe to pull the spark plug. right?
Yeah.
Either one would stop the bike.
Yeah.
Was it Mr. Johnson that was encouraging you to get over to Danny in a hurry to sell the bike?
Yes, before it got dark.
Okay?
Yeah.
Or to get his money?
I mean, probably both.
Okay? Your vehicle is in front of the black pickup truck.
Yes.
The black pickup truck is right in front of 797 Danby, correct?
Yes.
All right. I'm not asking you the exact
Yeah.
address, but it's the house where the bike came out of, correct?
Correct.
It's also the same house that is Mr. Johnson's uncle. You know his name?
No.
At a point in time, is there a point in time when Mr. Johnson is trying to drive away?
He was like scooting the bike like with his feet. He was like pushing off because he couldn't go anywhere because Curtis still had his hand.
And when he's pushing with his feet, he's pushing the bike into Mr. Gill, isn't he?
No, Gil was on the side.
Okay. Bikes have what they call a foot spike or a
Foot peg.
Foot peg, right? Those pieces of steel that sticks out both sides.
Yeah.
Right. And that foot peg is what, 18 inches, 2 feet off the ground?
No.
What do you think? 12, 15 inches?
Yeah, maybe a foot. Yeah.
Okay. You see a woman
Yes.
there at what I'll call the seat one day, correct?
Correct.
How many women do you see there that night at that incident?
I only recall seeing one.
Okay? This woman is on the phone, is that correct?
Correct.
You know who she's calling?
So she's on the phone with the police.
She's calling the police.
Yes.
Before anything happens.
As soon as when she got out of the truck initially, it was about 2 or 3 minutes after that she was on the phone.
All right. There's no shots fired or anything like that, right? Is that a yes or no?
No.
Remember our court reporter? She doesn't have a weapon that she sees, is that correct, sir?
Correct.
The only thing she has in her hand is a phone?
Correct.
Talking to the police?
Yes.
Can you overhear the conversation?
I just overheard that she was giving the address to the police, but I just knew that she was talking to the police.
She's giving the police that address.
I believe so. She was like repeating damage or something.
All right. At this point in time, you've testified that you're getting a little nervous.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And you want to get out of it, correct?
Correct.
All right. And you get in your car, correct?
Correct.
Your car is facing the north, I believe. Is that a fair way to put it?
The dead end.
Right, I was just going to
Yeah.
say, it's facing toward the dead end, correct?
Yes.
So you have your back to the black pickup truck, correct?
Yes.
You hear at about this point in time, correct me if I'm wrong, that you hear a pop.
Yes.
And about this time, you see a fellow with white hair holding a gun. Is it pointing straight up in the air?
Yeah.
Okay? You hear a pop. That weapon is not fired at the black truck or anybody in or around the bike, is it? Is that a fair statement?
Yes, yeah.
I forgot if I asked you, did you ever see Kurt with any weapon?
No, I didn't see it.
So you hear the pop, you see the gun pointed in the air, then you start driving down for the dead end?
I seen the gun in the air, and after I heard the pop, and then that's when like they get off the side of the side of my car, and that's when I left.
All right. And when you talk about the side of your car, you're talking about the passenger side or the driver's side?
Driver's side.
All right. The driver's side would then be in the street, correct?
Correct.
All right. So Mr. Beal and Mr. Johnson are arguing over the bike in the street, correct?
Correct.
And you eventually are able to pull away.
Yes.
All right. And so what goes on after that, a lot of it is behind you. Is that fair way?
Yes.
You get down to the turn, I'll call it a turnaround at the dead end, sure, there's one there. And then you come back up, correct?
Yes.
All right. And then you ever see a fire hydrant on your driver's side?
Driver's side? No. Passenger side? Yes.
I'm sorry?
Passenger side?
That's right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What I'm getting at is, you see a fire hydrant and a red truck.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not next to each other though.
Well, they're pretty close to one another.
The truck was on my driver's side going towards Eastwood.
Correct.
So the fire hydrant was on the left. Or
Right.
yeah, my passenger.
Well, we've got photos.
Yeah.
All right. And this person with the gun is standing in the street.
Yes.
All right. And I think you said he's got a couple of people huddled around him.
He was in the middle of the street as I was leaving towards the dead end. As I was coming back and I did the turnaround, they were in a group together, like off to the side on my passenger side of the car.
Right. Do you remember the red truck being there?
On my passenger side, no.
Okay. Lot going on at that point in time, right?
What was that, sir?
There's a lot going on. At that
Yeah,
point in
yes.
time. You saw the three people together, so to speak?
Yes.
All right. Are they in the street?
They're like, I'm pretty sure like the Devil Strip area.
All right. But you don't remember the red truck?
No, not on that
All
side
right.
of the
It's
road.
all right. You indicated that Mr. Johnson's, I'll call him friend, Brandon Ward, was there.
Yes.
The when you saw, let's go back up a little bit.
Okay.
Let's go back to the time when you first arrived on Danby. Okay? And Mr. Johnson gets the bike started. Correct?
Correct.
All right. Does he ride the bike up and down the street a couple times?
Yeah. Yes.
And is he in control of the bike?
Yes.
Does he know what he's doing riding that bike?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. You've seen him ride that bike other times before, haven't you?
Not that particular bike, I believe. I've seen him ride another dirt bike, another
All right.
dirt bike.
He knew what he was doing on the bike, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Judge.
Justin, in regards to the meeting that was set up between yourself and Ambrose and Curtis Gill, did Ambrose, aka Curtis Gill, ever ask to postpone the meeting, ask you to can we wait a half hour, delay it in any fashion?
No, I don't remember, and I don't think so.
You don't recall him ever asking to delay it or to postpone it in any way, correct?
No.
So when he shows up at the house on Lenore, he said it's kind of a friendly meeting, and he's not saying, well, can we do this at a later date, or can we wait a half hour, I'm waiting for somebody.
Yeah, no, he never said that.
As far as having to go to Danby, did I hear you on direct examination that one of the reasons was that it's cold outside and that affected driving the bike to a different location?
Yeah.
But you also heard,
It when you go to kick it to start it, it'll make a noise that you can hear.
and you could hear that over the phone?
Yeah, I heard it over the phone, and I'm pretty sure me and him both heard it because we both kind of oh, there's the bike. We heard it outside, not on the phone.
So the bike had trouble starting one way or another, and the weather could have been a factor.
Yeah, it was, dude. Yeah.
When then you get over to Danby, you describe Mr. Ward as being by his car or a car in the driveway. Is that correct?
Correct.
You also described that at some point after Curtis indicates it's his bike, things get tense. Does Mr. Ward at any time come over and then get involved in the disagreement?
Yeah, him and Keith were talking, but I really couldn't make out what they were saying. I thought what he was saying was just give him the bike, but I don't know. They were. It was kind of not quiet, but they were just. I just didn't really comprehend what he was saying. I just knew that they were talking.
Did Mr. Ward ever make any physical actions towards Ambrose or Mr. Gill?
No.
Did he ever get up close to him so that the two of them would have been right on top of Mr. Gill?
No.
Did Mr. Ward do anything that you saw as confrontational or aggressive towards Mr. Gill?
No.
You talk about the noise of the dirt bike and redlining. Now, is redlining something that you want the bike to do?
In my opinion, no. I wouldn't want it to happen.
Is redlining and that noise, is it indicative of losing control of the bike or not having complete control of the bike?
No.
Were there any signs that you saw that the bike was not in complete control while you were watching?
No, it was stationary.
It was stationary.
Yeah, it was stationary.
As far as between Curtis and Keith, when is the first contact between the two of them then?
When Curtis goes to grab the clutch on the bike. That was the first.
And you testified on cross-examination that Keith tried to scoot the bike.
Yeah.
And why is he scooting the bike?
Because it wasn't going because the clutch was engaged. It wasn't able to do anything.
Was he scooting the bike in order to direct it at?
No, he was
Mr.
scooting
Gill?
the bike. He was scooting the bike just towards Eastwood. He was just going straight.
And would that have been away from Mr. Gill at that point?
Yes.
And as he's scooting, what's Mr. Gill doing?
That's I believe when he was fumbling around with his right hand trying to what I thought was trying to show off the gas or something, and he still had his hand on the clutch. His left hand
One hand's on the clutch, the other hand is reached on
on the side of the motor area.
And Keith is trying to scoot the bike away from Mr. Gill, correct?
Yes.
And that would have been facing toward Eastwood at that point.
Yes.
No further questions.
We're almost done, Mr. Badgett. Redlining. If someone has their hand on the clutch, that bike's going nowhere, right?
Correct.
But if your hand is on the throttle, which is your right hand, that's causing the RPMs to really go up if you twist it, right? Okay. So the person with their hand on the right, the throttle is causing the red line, correct?
Correct.
And if you're racing that engine, you're trying to get out of there, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Gill has his hand on the throttle, is that correct? I'm sorry.
Johnson.
Mr. Gill has his hand on the clutch.
Yes.
Okay. So who has their hand on the throttle?
Johnson.
Mr. Johnson has the bike pointed toward Eastwood, correct?
Correct.
And that way, he could go either way on Eastwood, correct?
Correct.
you heard Mr. Ward, a good friend of Mr. Johnson, maybe his best friend.
Yes.
You heard Mr. Ward say, just the other night.
I don't know if I heard him exactly say that. That's why I assumed he said it.
Thank you very much, sir. Nothing further. No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Badgett. Maybe step down.
This, go back there.
Now we'll be calling Brandon Ward.
Okay, sir, if you'd raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
You may take the witness stand there, and you can adjust the mic if you would. Get kind of close to the mic. And
Good afternoon, sir. If you would please introduce yourself to the jury by telling them your full name and go ahead and spell both your first and last name for the court report.
Brandon Ward, B-R-A-N-D-O-N-W-A-R-D.
And Mr. Ward, the microphone will pick up your voice. You can sit back if you want. You don't have to lean into it. That way you don't have to be straining the whole time, okay? Say hello. Let's
Hello.
see. Can you? Okay, great. Mr. Ward, how old are you?
I'm 24.
And where did you grow up?
I grew up on the west side of Akron.
Okay, so pretty much Summit County your whole life.
Yes.
Where'd you go to high school?
I went to several different high schools.
Okay, where did you graduate?
I graduated from Firestone.
Firestone, okay. And let me talk about specifically back in March of 2017. Where were you living at that time? Not your specific address, but what area of Akron?
East Akron.
And who are you living with?
My grandparents and my cousins.
Okay. Since high school, have you had a trade or occupation?
Yes.
What do you do?
I was cutting hair. I have several jobs as well through temp services.
Okay. Do you know a person by the name of Keith Johnson?
Yes.
How do you know Keith Johnson?
He was a very close friend of mine.
And how long did you know Keith?
For quite a while. I can't give you an exact number of years, but
Okay.
it was a long time.
How did you meet him?
I met him because he was like basically family in reality. I mean, he was real close to the family.
Okay. Close to your family?
Yes.
And did you know him in high school or after high school?
I met Keith after I graduated.
After you graduated? Okay. So sometime between high school and the date that this happened, the incident we're talking about, in March of 2017, how often would you see Keith?
Almost every day.
Okay. And you talked about family. How do you refer to him?
As my brother.
Okay. Who is Justin Badgett?
A friend of Keith.
All right. Do you know him?
Yes, I know him as well.
All right. And do you know him on your own, or do you know him just through Keith?
I know him on my own. I know him both sides because him and my younger brother were best friends in high school.
All right. So Justin and your younger brother were best friends in high school?
Yes.
Okay. How much younger is your brother?
About 2 or 3 years younger than me.
All right. Who's Bianca Martin?
A mutual friend of me and Keith.
All right. And how long have you known her?
Probably a year.
At that time, it was about a year?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, Mr. Ward, I just want to remind you, this lady right here is taking down everything that's being said. So if I ask a question, if you say, it doesn't translate very well on writing. So you have to say yes or no.
Okay.
All right. If you forget, I'll try and remind you, but please try and remember, okay?
No problem.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about Keith, all right? First of all, do you know if he had a kind of or a trade or an occupation?
As long as I knew Keith, he had an occupation of driving trucks,
All right. What kind of trucks?
semi-trucks,
Okay.
flatbeds.
You said flatbeds?
Yes.
Okay. Did he also ride dirt bikes, four-wheelers, and things of that nature?
Yes.
Okay. And did he ever sell them?
Yes.
Okay. Were you a part of any of that business? Like when he would buy and sell motorcycles or dirt bikes or four-wheelers, was that something he did on the side to make money, or was that something he did as a hobby, and were you involved?
That was more or less a hobby, and no, I was not involved.
All right. So you never made any money from any of these sales?
No.
Okay. And how many, if you know, times did he sell a dirt bike or four-wheeler?
As far as I know, maybe 3.
Okay. Did there come a time where Keith had a dirt bike that was a little smaller than some of the others?
Yes.
All right. Can you describe that bike for us?
That bike was blue and white,
Okay.
I believe.
Your Honor, if I could. Thank you. Sir, I'm going to show you what's been previously identified as State's Exhibit number 3B. If you could take a look at that. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And how do you recognize that?
That's one of the dirt bikes that he had purchased.
Okay. And so you said that the one that was smaller was blue,
Yes.
correct? Does this appear to be that bike?
Yes.
All right. And when you say smaller, are you familiar at all with dirt bikes?
Not as far as the motors or whatnot. When I say smaller, I mean as far as like the height.
All right. Size-wise?
Right.
Okay. Do you ride dirt bikes?
No, not really.
All right. Did you see Keith ride this bike?
Yes.
Okay. How many times would you have seen him on this bike, if you remember?
I couldn't tell you exactly.
All right. Prior to March 20th of 2017, do you know how long he had that bike?
It was for a few months.
Okay. Do you know where he got it?
The neighbor's son. He
Okay.
purchased it from the neighbor's son, his mom's neighbor's son.
So Keith's mother's neighbor's son.
Correct.
Do you know how much he paid for it?
I want to say about 500.
Okay. And when he purchased it, did you know how much this bike was worth yourself?
No.
All right. Do you know if Keith knew?
No, not for sure, no.
Okay. Do you know if Keith knew that the bike was stolen?
Yes.
All right. And what is that based on?
What do you mean?
Why do you know, how do you know that Keith knew the bike was stolen?
When he bought it, the guy told him that it was stolen.
All right. So do you know why Keith bought it, even though he knew it was stolen?
For enjoyment?
For enjoyment?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know why? Let's strike that. So Keith buys the bike, you say for a few months prior to March 20th, 2017, he rode it a few times, but you don't know how many.
Correct.
Okay. Did there come a time where he then decided to sell that bike?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know why he wanted to sell the bike?
No, I don't know exactly why.
Okay. And were you involved at all in that process?
What do you mean as far as
As
involved?
far as selling the bike, did you have anything to do with selling that bike? Did you do anything, make any efforts to sell it?
No.
Okay. Do you know who did?
Justin?
All right. And do you know how Justin got involved in the selling of this bike?
Not
Okay.
really, no.
So that was between Justin and Keith.
Correct.
At some point in time, well, let's move ahead. Let's move to March 20th, 2017. In the early evening hours, who were you with?
Keith.
And, okay, it was just you and Keith?
Yes, in the early morning, yes.
Not early morning, early evening.
Oh, early evening, it was me, Keith, and Bianca.
Okay, and what were you guys doing?
We were in the car.
All right, were you going somewhere?
We were supposed to be going to a bar to have some drinks.
Okay. And do you remember, if you know, about what time this was?
I couldn't tell you exactly.
All right, was it still light out or was it dark?
I couldn't tell you exactly.
Okay. And at some point in time, did your plans change?
Yes.
Why did they change?
Keith had got a phone call about a sale for the dirt bike.
All right. Were you all still in the car when this happened?
Yes.
You hadn't made it to the bar yet?
Correct.
Okay. And so what basically happened after that phone call?
After that phone call, we went and met up with the people that were supposed to be buying the bike from.
All right, so let's go back, and I first should have asked you, who was driving the car?
I was driving.
Okay. So you were driving to head to a bar, get some drinks, and he gets a call, and where do you go then?
We head towards the Heights, Goodyear Heights.
You go to where?
Towards Goodyear Heights.
Goodyear Heights, okay. And where specifically were you going to go? How did you know where to go?
Because I knew where he had kept the dirt bike at.
Which was where?
On Dan Mead.
On Dan Mead?
Correct.
And why did you keep it on Dan Mead?
That was the only place that was comfortable, I guess, for him.
Okay. Did Keith live in a house or apartment? Do you know?
At that time, Keith lived in an apartment.
All right. So there wouldn't be anywhere, a garage or anything to keep the bike in at the apartment?
Correct.
Whose house is it that you went to on Dan Mead?
His uncle's house.
And what's his name, do you know?
Well, I call him Uncle Boogie.
Okay. So you refer to him as your uncle?
Mm-hmm.
He's
Yes.
but he's not really your uncle?
Correct.
Okay. But he is actually Keith's uncle?
Correct.
And does he have a garage at his house?
Yes.
Okay. So you go to that Dan Mead address, and where do you go? Where do you park?
I pulled all the way to the back, behind the house, in front of the garage.
Okay. And I am going to show you the completes identified as States Exhibit number 1. Okay. Do you recognize this? Take a look at that and get your bearings straight, and let me know when and if you recognize this.
Yes.
Okay. So can you point out on the screen here where Keith's uncle's house is? And you can actually use your finger and draw. There you go. Okay, so that's the house.
Correct.
Where do you pull in? All right, so you pull to the back part of the house.
Yes.
And is this the garage here?
Yes.
Okay. When you pull in, is there anybody that you recall being there at that time?
Being weird.
At the house?
Yes. I recall Justin, and I don't know the other guy's name, but they were both in front of the house.
Okay. And did you at that time ever see Keith's uncle? Were they outside or inside?
When I pulled in,
Yeah.
what was your question again?
Did you see Keith's uncle there? Was he outside? the
No,
house?
not when I pulled in, no.
Okay. And so the only people that were already there that you remember seeing was Justin and the other guy,
Correct.
right? What were they doing when you got there?
They were I couldn't tell you. Honestly, I don't remember exactly what they were doing.
I know it's been a while ago, so just do the best you can, best of your memory, okay?
Yes.
Do you know why you were meeting them at Dan Mead?
Yes.
Okay, why was that?
To sell the dirt bike.
And I should have asked you, was there another place that you were going to meet originally?
Justin's house.
Okay, and why did that change?
Because the dirt bike he couldn't get the dirt bike around the corner.
All right, and why is it you couldn't get around the corner?
Because it wouldn't start.
Okay, so when did he try to start the bike?
When we got to on them knee.
All right, so I just want to be clear, because you were there, Dan Mead, he tried to start the bike. When he tried to start the bike the first time, where was Justin?
They were already there.
They were already there?
Yes.
All right. If they were already there, then why would you go to Lenore, the other's place, to Justin's place to sell the bike?
I'm not sure.
All right. Is it possible your memory is not quite accurate on that?
That could be possible.
Okay. So at some point he tries to start the bike, he can't start it, and then what happens? Does he eventually get it started?
Yes.
Okay. And when he gets it started, what does he do? Or what happens next?
When he gets the bike started, he rides it up and down the street. Or he
Okay.
rides it down the street.
And what direction does he ride, if you recall?
Towards the dead end.
Okay, so he rides the bike this way,
Correct.
and then where does he go?
He comes back the opposite direction.
Okay, and how far down does he go, if you remember?
I can't honestly tell you.
That's all right. And how many times does he go up and down? Once or more than that?
I couldn't honestly tell you.
Do you know why he did that?
To warm the bike up.
Okay. After he goes up the street, up and down the street, what does he do next? Or what happens next?
After he goes up and down the street, he pulls in the driveway.
Okay. And which driveway were you referring to?
Damn me, or his uncle's house.
Okay. So okay, right here. That's good. And so it's labeled 797 Danby. Were you aware of that address or not?
Correct.
Okay, so we'll refer to it as 797 Danby. So he's in the driveway of 797 Danby. And where are you at that point in time?
I'm standing in the driveway as well.
Okay. Let's see here. The bike is blue. So he's is he in the driveway? How far up in the driveway is he?
Right beyond the sidewalk, I want to say.
So he's right there?
Yes.
All right. And where are you?
Not too far away from home. Second arrow.
Second arrow here?
Mm-hmm.
So you're in the street?
No, I'm in the driveway.
Oh, I see.
By the Devil Street.
Okay, I see. So you're on the wider part that slopes down?
Correct.
Okay. And where is Bianca?
She's still in the car.
She's in the car. And you said there was the other guy that was there, you said you remember his name. Where was he?
At the time that Poobie pulled back in the driveway,
I'm sorry, at the time what?
at the time that Keith pulled back in the driveway, he was next to Keith.
Okay. And so what happened?
They began discussing the bike. He looked at the bike.
Well, hold on, let me just stop you right there. You said they began to discuss the bike. How long did they talk about the bike? If you know.
I don't know, honestly.
At that point in time, describe the conversation as far as, was it mean? Was it angry? Was it friendly? Was it general conversation, business-like?
It was a general conversation.
Okay. And what was the conversation about, if you remember?
The price of the bike.
Do you remember how much he was asking?
No.
And so, can you tell us any more about that conversation?
I don't understand your question.
That's okay. That's all right. They discuss the price of the bike. What, if anything, is Keith doing at that point? Is he on or off the bike?
He's still on the bike.
Okay, is the bike on or off?
The bike, it depends on when.
At the very beginning of the conversation, when he comes back and they start talking, does he leave the bike on or does he turn it off?
The bike cuts off.
Okay. And so the bike is off at that point, they're discussing the bike, and there's a guy that's there that's to purchase the bike. Is he looking at it? Is he doing anything?
There was a point in time where he was looking at it, but there was also a point in time where he was in his phone, texting as well.
Okay. He was texting who?
I don't know who he was texting.
Okay. So there was a point in time where he was on the phone, his phone appeared to be texting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
And tell us what happens next.
They discussed the price of the bike. The guy doesn't agree with it. He then tells Keith that the bike was stolen, that it's his son's bike, and that he came to get it. He wants it back.
Okay.
He tells Keith that he doesn't have any money. Keith basically pleads with them to give him at least something for the bike so he could take a complete loss. And the guy doesn't agree with them.
Okay. And when you say he doesn't agree with him, meaning he's not paying?
Correct.
Okay. And then what's the next thing you remember happening?
After they don't come to an agreement, the guy basically doesn't want to, like I said, they don't want to come to an agreement. The guy wants the bike back. Keith was like, well, show me the title. And as the guy began to pull the title out, Keith starts the bike up.
Okay. And then what happens after does he get it started?
Yes.
When he gets it started, what does he do?
When he gets the bike started, the guy tries to grab the handle, or he grabs the handlebar, and Keith takes off on the bike.
Keith takes off.
Correct.
All right. And what does it appear he's doing at that point in time? Keith.
Riding the bike.
Okay. And which direction is he going?
Towards Eastwood.
Towards Eastwood?
Yes.
Okay. And that would be to the open street as opposed to the dead end?
Correct.
During this, do you remember anyone else being there or arriving?
What do you mean?
Was there a female there?
Yes.
Okay. And when did you first see that female?
She was there when we got there.
Okay. And do you know where she was during this whole thing?
On the sidewalk.
Okay, which sidewalk?
In front of the house.
Okay, in front of 797 Dan Mead?
Correct.
Okay, do you know what she was doing?
She was on the phone.
All right. And do you know who she was on the phone with?
The police.
And how do you know that?
Because she made a statement that she was calling them.
All right. At the point that she said she was going to call him, do you know what the conversation was going on between Keith and the person trying to buy the bike?
That they couldn't come to an agreement when Keith was still in the driveway. The guy didn't want to give him any, the guy said he didn't have any money to give him for the bike.
All right. And that was, it would have been after the guy told him it's his son's bike. Is that correct?
I believe so.
All right. Do you remember seeing any other vehicles there?
Any other vehicles
Besides yours?
It was Badgett. There was a truck behind Badgett, and there were two cars on the opposite side of the street right here.
Okay, hold on a second here. All right, where was Badgett? Okay, so here, I'll tell you what. Oh, hold on, I just made the same mistake wrong. So, Justin's vehicle was there,
Correct.
okay? Do you know what kind of car the man that was going to buy the bike was driving?
I believe it was a pickup truck
Okay, do you know where that was?
behind Justin's car.
Okay. And do you know, were there any other vehicles around?
There were two cars on the opposite side being worked on. I
Okay.
want to say one of them was being worked on.
Opposite directly? Directly or,
I want to say in front of the next house up towards Eastwood.
all right, so there was two cars here being worked on, is that fair?
I believe so.
Okay. So the conversation that took place about the price of the bike took place in the end of the driveway. You were there, Keith was there, and where was Justin?
I don't remember exactly.
Was he involved in all that conversation? If you remember,
No,
okay? Were you involved at all in that conversation?
no.
At some point in time when the title, when the issue about the title or the ownership of the bike being this man who was trying to buy it, when he told him, hey, this is my bike, I have the title, did you ever talk or say anything to Keith about it?
I don't remember.
All right? Do you remember saying anything at all to Keith?
Yes, but I don't remember exactly what I said.
All right. At that point in time, in your mind, you remember in your mind what you were thinking?
Objection.
Overrule.
No, sir.
Okay. Did you think, did you have an opinion at that point in time whether he should take off on the bike or whether he should give the bike back?
Yes.
Okay, tell me about that.
Well, in my opinion, I was thinking that he should just give the bike to the owner.
All right. And did you ever express that to Keith?
I may have.
Okay. You don't recall?
I don't recall exactly.
Do you know if Justin did or not?
No.
Okay. Do you remember seeing anybody else there at that point in time?
Anybody else as far as...
Anyone else being there? You've got you, Keith, the man buying the bike, the woman on the phone, and Justin. Bianca's back in the car. Was there anybody else involved in this situation?
No.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I think there was a guy across the street by the cars, the two cars.
Working on the car.
Correct.
Do you remember if he was white or black?
I believe he was white.
He was a white guy?
Yes.
Okay. So, at this point, there's two people with you. Well, actually, one's in the car, and then Keith, correct?
Yes.
Justin came with Mr. Gill, the other fellow that was trying to buy the bike, right?
Correct.
And the woman, she was with who?
I believe she was with Mr. Gill as well.
Okay.
I'm not honestly sure.
So she clearly wasn't with you.
Correct.
All right. And this guy over here, what was he doing?
Working on one of the cars.
He was completely out of it.
Correct.
At any time, did you and Mr. Badgett surround Mr. Gill around that car? I mean, excuse me, around the bike?
No.
All right. So you left off, you were telling us that there was a struggle over the bike, okay? Mr. Gill grabs the handlebars,
Yes.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Do you know why? Could you tell why he was, or what he was doing when he was grabbing the handlebars?
What do you mean as far as what he was doing?
Why did it appear to you that Mr. Gill grabbed the handlebars of the bike?
Maybe because Keith started it back up.
Because Keith started to back up?
Correct.
Okay. And you said that Keith ultimately was trying to get away, yes?
Correct.
How long was it that Mr. Gill had his hands on that bike?
Not long.
Okay. And do you know if Mr. Gill was in front of the bike or to the side of the bike?
To the side,
To the side?
I believe.
Okay. Best of your recollection, you believe he was to the side?
Yes.
And you said that Keith was able to get away, and when he got away, what way was the bike initially facing when they were struggling over it?
Towards the street.
Toward the street.
I mean, towards the street, towards Eastwood. It was at an angle.
So it was at an angle, so he was facing this way?
Basically, yes.
Okay, I know it's not the right exact spot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so he takes off, he could have gone either direction, but he goes out.
Correct.
What happens once he takes off?
Once he takes off, he heads towards Eastwood. He basically kind of loses control. It's a car that takes off not too long after he did. And the car almost hit him. So that's what I believe made him lose control when he took off and spin back around.
So about the time of the struggle, right when he gets away, a car is leaving. Mm-hmm. And they almost hit each other or they're near each other?
Correct.
And you believe that's when Keith loses control of the bike?
Yes.
Describe for us what that looks like when you say he loses control of the bike. What's he doing? What happens?
He kind of sways to one side.
Okay. And do you remember when does he lose complete control and fall off the bike?
No, he stays on. He doesn't lose complete control. He sways to one side of the bike. I mean to one side of the bike and spins around.
Okay, so does he go to the ground?
What do you mean, like does he?
Does when he loses control of the bike, he sways to the side, does he lay the bike on the ground? Is he like on the ground?
No.
He doesn't ever go down?
No.
Where does this take place? That he loses this control?
I want to say right. I want to say in that area.
Okay. And was he on that side of the street?
Yes.
Okay. And do you remember him passing these cars at all?
I couldn't honestly tell you.
It's okay. All right. Do you, now you started saying something about him when he lost control. Well, you tell us what happened when he lost control. You tell me again.
When he lost control, the bike spins around.
Why does the bike spin around?
Because that's the way I guess that's the way he swayed. I'm not sure. I couldn't tell you honestly why the bike went around.
Okay, you can't tell or you don't remember?
Both.
All right. Now, you testified previously in this matter, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay. And if I were to show you that prior testimony, which was several months back, would you be able to, would that maybe possibly refresh your recollection?
It's possible.
Looking at transcript page number 11. All right, now just read this to yourself and see if that, you can go back to if you want, to the question. Read that to yourself and see if that refreshes your recollection. Okay? Okay. Sir, you said that now refresh your recollection?
Yes.
All right, so tell us now what you recall.
When Keith had took off out of the
Wait,
driveway,
hold on 1 second. Just, there was a little bit of noise back there, so something dropped. That's okay. Go ahead, tell us what you recall.
when Keith had took off out of the driveway, he had lost control of the bike. He fell, but the way he fell, he was still on the bike.
Okay, so he fell to the ground, but he never like fell off the seat.
Correct. He never fell off. Correct.
He still had his hands on the handlebar?
Correct.
Okay, what happened?
And that's when the bike had spent around.
All right.
Or
So-
kind of like fishtail, I guess you could say fishtail.
Okay, so the bike fishtails and ends up turning around, coming the other direction.
Correct.
Do you remember then at that point in time what the bike does?
The bike raises up, the front of the bike raises up in the air,
Okay, so the front tire comes off the
comes off the
ground.
ground, correct?
And then what's the next thing you know happened?
That's when I hear the gunshot,
And when you hear the gunshot, you don't see it, is that fair?
correct?
And when you hear it, what happens? What happens to Keith?
He falls to the ground.
All right. When you hear the shot, you see Keith fall to the ground, do you then look to see what happened?
What do you mean?
Did you look around to see,
Yes,
okay? And what did you see?
there was a guy behind me next to the truck.
Okay, so let's talk about that. This guy that you see, had you seen him before that moment?
No,
And can you tell us where he was standing?
he was standing next to a truck.
Okay, and where was that truck? If you remember.
I couldn't tell you exactly where, but it was on the opposite side of the street.
It was on the opposite side, okay? So if you look up here, so was it right across the street?
No, it wasn't directly across.
Say that again?
No, it was not directly across.
Okay, so was it further to the right near these cars, or was it further this
It was behind me.
All right. Do you think it was way up here?
I believe it was like in this area.
All right, so let's, I'm gonna just, so I'm just gonna draw right here, okay? So that's the truck. Do you remember what kind of truck it was? What color or anything?
I believe it was red,
Okay, and where was he in relation to the truck?
right next to it,
Right next to, on which side?
on the driver's side,
The driver's side, which way was the truck facing?
towards Eastwood.
Towards this way, so he would have been in the street side.
Correct.
Okay. And was he at the front of it, the back of it, in the
front.
middle of it?
The front,
Toward the front of the truck?
Yes.
In the street? And when you saw him, did you notice anything about him, or what he had?
a gun in his hand.
Okay? And what happened next? If you remember.
He was walking towards Keith.
Okay. And what did you do then?
I don't remember.
Okay. Did you go to your,
I think that's when I went to Keith, and then once I realized Keith wasn't responding, I had ran to Uncle Bookie's house,
to where?
to the 797.
Oh, you went to the house, and what did you do there?
I knocked on the door
Okay. And why did you do that?
to let Uncle know that Keith wasn't responding, he had been shot.
Okay. You went to get help?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember anything after that about what the man with the gun did? If not, that's
I believe the girl that was on the phone and the man that had the gun were talking to each other, or she had gave him the phone or something like that.
okay. Let me just go back now and ask you a couple other questions. You okay? All right. When Keith is able to get free from Mr. Gill, he takes off, and you say he goes toward Eastwood. Do you recall what Mr. Gill did when Keith took off?
I believe he started in the direction that Keith was going towards.
So after Keith takes off on the bike, Mr. Gill tries to chase after him?
Objection, affirmative.
Sustained.
What do you believe, what did it appear Mr. Gill was doing after Keith took off on the bike?
Mr. Gill had walked towards the street in the direction that Keith had took off in.
And you don't know what his reasoning was for that?
Correct.
Okay. At the time that the man with the gun shot Keith, where was the woman with the phone?
On the sidewalk.
She's still over here?
Yes.
So she's on the sidewalk. Was she in any way in front of that bike?
No.
Was she anywhere near that bike?
No.
Was that bike in any way, in your impression from being there, about to strike her or hit her?
No.
Where was Mr. Gill when the man shot Keith? If you remember.
I want to say right there where that green, where you got the green dash at.
Where the green dash is, okay? So this would have been where Jacob's car was?
Correct.
Excuse me, Justin's car was?
Yes.
Okay. And would that have been near his truck?
Yes.
Okay. Was there anything stopping Mr. Gill from stepping to the side, out of the street? Well, I should have asked you, was he actually in the street when he went after Keith?
I don't remember. I couldn't tell you honestly.
Where Keith was when he was shot was about where?
Where the little red dash. Oh, when he actually got shot, I believe he was at the, it would be like towards the rear end of the truck.
So Keith would have been at the rear end of the truck when he was shot. Okay? Where do you believe Mr. Gill was when Keith was shot?
Objection, asked me. He said he didn't remember, Judge.
Sustained.
Can you ask me that question again?
Well, the judge sustained the objection, so I'm going to ask a different question, okay? Sorry, Judge, if I could just have a moment. During the time right before Keith was shot, you were paying attention to Keith?
Yes.
So you were watching him as he lost control and spun and came back up on the bike?
Yes.
Okay. At that time, right before he was shot, was there anybody in his way?
No.
From your vantage point, were you in any harm's way?
No.
And if you recall, I know you don't know exactly where Mr. Gill was, but if you recall, was he in harm's way at the time that Keith was shot?
Objection. It's the same question, different angle.
Sir, do you remember where he was? You were watching Mr. Johnson, correct?
Yes.
So you were not watching Mr. Gill.
Correct.
So do you know where he was?
Not exactly, no.
Okay.
Do you know where he wasn't?
Objection.
Yes.
Well, ask him You can ask that. Was he
Right.
in need or something?
Right. So was he in the line or path of that bike?
No,
At any time, did anybody prevent Mr. Gill from getting in his truck and leaving?
at what time?
At any time during the whole event?
No,
Okay. At any time during this whole event, did you or anybody there, you, Keith, anyone, make any threats to anybody?
no,
Did you have any weapons with you?
no,
After this happened, you stayed, correct?
yes,
You talked to the police?
yes,
Your uncle was there?
yes,
He talked to the police?
yes,
Your uncle talked to the police?
yes,
Okay. Once there was a discussion about the title, how heated did that discussion ever get?
I'm not understanding your question.
Well, was there a point in time that you recall that the lady on the phone was talking to the police?
Yes,
And did she make some indication of why she was on the phone at all to the police?
she said that there was a man being aggressive.
Okay. So she's telling the police on the phone there's a man being aggressive. Was that about the time that the title
Correct.
issue came up? And what happened, if anything, when she said that?
I believe there was a statement Keith had made asking Mr. Gill to ask his wife to stop lying to the police because he wasn't being aggressive with them.
Okay. So he responded and said, I'm not being aggressive.
Correct.
Did Mr. Gill at all respond in any way? Telling him, yes, you are, or anything of that nature?
No,
Did he respond in any way to that you recall?
no,
When the lady on the phone commented to the police that the man was getting aggressive, or was aggressive, did it appear that Keith was being aggressive to you?
no.
Thank you. I have no further questions. Do you need the pictures too? I think so.
Thanks. Mr. Ward,
Yes,
I'm Terry O'Brien. I represent Mr. Knight. If I ask you a question and it's not clear, I'll be glad to rephrase it. Is that fair enough?
yes,
Okay. Mr. Ward, I realize you're kind of a soft-spoken guy, but it's important that we keep our voice up, primarily for the court reporter and also for the jury. Is that okay?
yes,
Is it fair to say that Keith Johnson was your best friend?
yes,
Is it fair to say that you regarded him just like a brother?
yes,
When Mr. Badgett and the buyer announced that they were coming over to Dan Mead, it was your expectation they were coming there to either look or buy the bike, is that correct?
yes,
And you knew at that point in time that that bike was stolen, didn't you?
I knew before then, yes,
So you knew that Keith Johnson wanted to sell a stolen bike, correct?
Yes.
When Mr. Justin Badgett came over with his car, there was a black pickup truck behind him, is that correct?
They were there when we arrived.
Right. So, if they were already there, you really hadn't started the bike yet, had you?
Correct.
Eventually, Mr. Johnson got the bike started. Did you help him?
No.
Right. Mr. Johnson knew about dirt bikes.
Yes.
He got the bike started, and did he ride it up and down the street?
After the bike, yes, after he got the bike started, yes.
How many times did he ride it up and down the street?
I don't recall.
Once, twice?
I believe so.
All right. Was he in full control of the bike at that time?
Yes.
Matter of fact, Mr. Johnson had plenty of experience on dirt bikes, didn't he?
Yes.
Okay. And he also had drove four-wheelers, is that correct?
Yes.
And how long did he have this dirt bike, if you remember?
For a few months,
Okay. And he rode it during that period of time?
a few times that I know of.
Okay. Do you know how to ride dirt bikes?
Not as well as he do. Well,
Who taught you how to ride a dirt bike?
he did.
He. When Mr. Johnson and Mr. Gill, the buyer, are talking about the bike, is the initial conversation friendly or pleasant?
I'm not, I don't understand your question.
Is the first, when they first get to the bike, Mr. Gill, Mr. Badgett, Justin, is there any angry words at that point in time?
No.
Mr. Gill wants to look at the bike, is that correct?
Yes.
Does Mr. Gill get out some sort of flashlight or smartphone and start looking over the bike?
At some point, yes.
And is he using his flashlight because it's dark at that point in time?
Yes.
Is he looking, if you know, is he looking for a serial number?
I'm not aware.
All right, it's all right. At a point in time, you're pretty close to the dirt bike. Is that a fair way of putting it?
I would say close. I'm
How
not,
far away do you think you are, sir?
I couldn't tell you exactly.
Well, you're close enough to hear people talking. Is that a fair way of putting it?
Yes.
All right. And do you hear Mr. Gill, Kurt Gill, announce that that bike is stolen? It's my bike. It belongs to my son.
Yes.
Does he further announce that I have the title to it?
Yes.
Now, at about this time, correct me if I'm wrong, Keith starts up the bike, is that correct?
Yes.
And is it as soon as he starts up the bike, is that when Mr. Gill grabs the handlebars?
I believe so, yes.
All right. And soon after that, or right after that, is when Keith takes off, is that right?
Yes.
And he's headed toward Eastwood.
Correct.
Is there anything in his way that's going to keep him from going to Eastwood and leaving the scene, going either way?
There was a car that left when he left.
There's a car that, I'm sorry, sir?
There's a car that had pulled off about the same time Keith had pulled off.
Okay, and that's the one I think you said that almost hit him?
Correct.
All right. Does that car block his way to keep him from going to Eastwood?
No.
Keith spins the bike around. Is that a fair way of putting it?
No, he failed.
Fell, okay. Does he fall on the ground?
He doesn't fall off the bike, but the bike falls, yes.
Okay. He stays in or close to being still on the seat. Is that correct?
Yes.
Then, I think you said the front wheel comes up. Is that correct, sir?
After the bike changes direction, yes.
Now the bike is facing back towards your group, correct?
The house, yes.
All right. And I think at that point in time, you testified a little while ago that the front end comes up.
Correct.
All right. Like someone's doing a wheelie.
Correct. The
You know what a
front,
wheelie is, right?
yes.
And the bike is coming back at your group. Is that correct?
Towards the house.
All right. Keith never fell off the bike, did he?
I'm not aware of the question. I don't
Keith
understand.
never fell off the bike, did he?
Completely came off the bike?
Correct, sir.
No, sir.
If I could have just a couple more seconds, Your Honor. Mr. Ward, thank you.
Mr. Badgett?
Yes,
Thank you, Mr. Ward. You may